Hey there, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going on a little bit of an introspective journey, really digging into the tangled pathways of our own minds. We're zeroing in on a pretty wild concept. Your brain is lying to you. And we're going to unpack exactly why you overthink literally everything. Let's just dive right in. So, let me ask you this. Have you ever replayed the exact same conversation in your head, just again and again, kind of agonizing over whether you said something wrong? Or, I don't know, maybe you've imagined 10 different future disasters, even when absolutely nothing bad has happened yet. Look, if you feel trapped by these relentless mental loops, you are definitely not alone. It's totally exhausting. And honestly, no matter how much you overanalyze, you just don't feel better. You actually just end up feeling way more anxious. Well, here is the absolute crucial point we need to make today. Your brain is lying to you. Now, I know, that sounds pretty intense, but here's what's actually going on. You see, overthinking feels incredibly productive. It tricks you into thinking that if you just analyze a situation a little bit deeper, you'll finally find peace. But that peace almost never comes. Why? Because it's actually a trap. It's a trap set by a brain that is simply trying way too hard to protect you. It's just a mental loop, totally convincing you that the answer is always just one more thought away.
Okay, moving on to section 1. The overthinking trap, or your brain's survival engine.
To really get why we do this to ourselves, we kind of have to look back at the evolutionary science of our minds. Because, spoiler alert, your brain was not designed to keep you calm. It was designed to keep you alive. Think about ancient history. Survival depended entirely on spotting danger super quickly. Fast forward a bit to the past, and the people who remembered pain and prepared for the absolute worst, well, they're the ones who survived. Today, though, that exact same survival engine manifests as our modern anxiety. We are literally evolutionarily wired to react to a missed call or an unanswered email with the exact same panic as we would a saber-toothed tiger. Crazy, right?
And because of this evolutionary history, we have this massive survival bias, which means one awkward comment effortlessly outweighs 10 compliments. Just think about that for a second. One tiny mistake or one slightly uncertain future outcome can completely erase 100 perfectly safe, happy moments in the present. Your mind just naturally zeroes in on what could go wrong, completely ignoring what is already perfectly fine.
So, there's actually a specific neurological reason for this whole thing. Let's talk about the default mode network, or the DMN. Neuroscience research and brain imaging meta-analyses show us that the DMN is essentially a network of interacting brain regions that gets highly active during self-focused, repetitive thinking and rumination. Basically, when you're just sitting there, seemingly doing nothing, this network powers up. And if it gets stuck, it keeps us circling those exact same fears from a bunch of different angles. It is the literal engine driving your mental spin.
And that spin almost always kicks off with one specific question. What if something goes wrong? I mean, it sounds like a harmless, even responsible question, doesn't it? But an anxious brain doesn't just ask it once. Oh no, it asks it again and again and again. What if they misunderstood me? What if I completely fail? What if I'm missing some sort of sign? At first, your mind treats this like a standard problem to solve, but eventually, the solving stops and the endless spinning just takes over.
All right, let's jump into section 2, solving versus spinning, and the illusion of control. So we really need to draw a hard line between actual, productive preparation and the exhausting emotional friction of rumination. Look at it this way. Problem solving moves you forward, right? It asks, what's next? And it ends with a definitive action. Rumination, on the other hand, keeps you stuck firmly in place. It constantly asks, why did this happen? Or what does it even mean? And it ends only with you feeling pure exhaustion. The tricky part is rumination falsely disguises itself as intelligence and careful preparation. It hands you this grand illusion of control, making it feel somehow safer to just keep thinking. But actually, you're just spinning your tires in the mud.
And as this spinning goes on, your mental exhaustion starts weakening your attention, and fear just completely takes over the narrative. That's exactly when your brain starts feeding you these incredibly convincing lies. It tells you that, hey, if you stop thinking about a problem, something terrible will inevitably happen. It tells you that feeling anxious means the danger is absolutely 100% real, and it promises you that imagining the absolute worst-case scenario will somehow miraculously prepare you for it. But listen to me here. A thought is not proof. Anxiety is not prophecy. And mental repetition is definitely not wisdom. Sometimes, a thought is really just a random piece of data that your nervous system absolutely refuses to let go of. The goal here isn't to fight and somehow win against every single passing thought. The goal is just to stop treating them like undeniable commands that you have to obey. Which brings us to section 3, breaking the cycle and stepping out of the loop. It is time to shift out of those dense, tangled neural pathways of anxiety and move towards clear, actionable clarity. To help you actually step out of that loop, we're going to walk through a really concrete 4-step framework. Number 1, name the pattern. Number 2, shift to action. Number 3, return to the present. And number 4, stop demanding certainty. These 4 steps can legitimately empower you to break your rumination loop for good. So let's break them down one by one. Okay, step 1 starts with a super powerful question. Ask yourself, am I solving something or am I spiraling? Simply naming the pattern out loud creates immediate psychological distance. It kind of snaps you right out of the trance and reminds you that just because a thought is intense doesn't mean it automatically deserves your trust.
Now for step 2, shift from thinking into action. First up, identify what is actually in your control right now. Then just take one small action. Why does this work? Well, because rumination absolutely feeds on helplessness. When you take even the smallest, most basic controllable action, you successfully interrupt that vicious cycle. And hey, what if there is literally no action to take? Then you just have to recognize that it's actually not a problem to solve. It's just a fear desperately searching for certainty. And that leads us perfectly into step 3, return to the present moment. Now remember, overthinking lives entirely in the past or the future. It's either replaying what already happened or predicting what might happen. But your body only lives in the now. So physically anchor yourself. Pay attention to your breathing, listen to the sounds in the room, or just notice the temperature of the air. Bring your nervous system right back to present reality. Remind yourself that you are safe right here, right now, not trapped in some imagined disaster.
Finally, step 4. And I'm going to be totally honest with you, this might actually be the hardest part. You have to stop demanding certainty from life. Overthinking is built on this really deep, completely false emotional bargain. We secretly believe that if we just think about things enough, we won't get hurt. But life has literally never offered that deal. No amount of worrying can ever guarantee safety, and honestly, no amount of mental rehearsal will ever remove every single risk from your future. Which actually brings us to this incredibly comforting thought. Peace comes from trusting that you can handle uncertainty without surrendering your entire mind to it. Once you truly deeply accept that you cannot mentally rehearse every single risk out there, an amazing thing starts to happen. Your mind will finally begin to loosen its grip. You really don't have to spend your entire life inside a mental courtroom where every single fear gets to present its case. So I really want to encourage you to try this. Just let a thought exist without turning it into a full-blown mission. It is a really brave thing to do. Let the uncertainty remain unanswered. Let the discomfort just pass right through you without chasing it down. Let your brain speak without handing it the microphone. Look, your brain is still going to try to protect you with these clumsy, exhausting, worst-case scenarios, but you don't have to obey every single alarm it sounds. And that leaves us with our final, super powerful takeaway for this explainer. Just because your brain says something doesn't mean it's true. True healing actually begins the exact moment you start to question those endless mental loops. So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. If you stopped treating every anxious thought like an undeniable emergency you had to solve right this second, what amazing things would you actually have the energy to build instead? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you in the next one.